By way of introduction on a writing for understanding, I don't know, and I don't have the time to find out how familiar any of you are with TCI. So, a writing for understanding is one of our 6 teaching strategies. It takes my least favorite thing, writing and grading and writing, and makes it palatable for me. But the lessons themselves follow patterns of several other TCI strategies. And so we're going to use writing to help the students learn. That is a super big key for TCI. Often, writing is used for assessment purposes only. And while we'll assess this, we want kids to learn through the process and not just to learn to be better writers, but to learn our content while they're writing. So that's why that's number one. That's a big key for this. And people that just assess with this, they miss that, and students are missing something out of there. So we want to give them rich experiences to write about, because there's nothing more stimulating than reading 100 essays that all are exactly the same. And so if we can give kids different ways to go, we give them an opportunity to change things up. That helps them, but it also helps us. Because by the time I get to the 35th really bad essay written about the same thing, I'm pretty sure I grade harder on those kids. And so we want to fix that. So we will use lessons that might look like a skill builder, if you're familiar with these, or might look like a response group. But the end result, the product at the end, is going to be a writing assignment. Kids need to record their ideas. They need to take some, I'll just use the old word, notes. Something's got to be there for them to use that information to write. If they don't, they're not going to have anything to pull back on. The writing's going to be very surface, and again, it's going to be very boring as well. The fourth point, we want the writing to be authentic if we can. My favorite example is, there's a lesson, I think it's actually in World Connections as well. It's in a couple of different programs, about going to Mexico City, and the students take, it used to be a bus tour. I think it's taxi cab ride now, but they go through and they visit different neighborhoods in Mexico City. And then when they're done, what I have them do is write a postcard home to their parents about what they learned, where they visited, what they loved. And they don't have to write about every stop. So different kids will be writing about different segments of their trip to Mexico City. I do the postcard for two reasons. One, my students don't know how to send a postcard, if they even know what a postcard is. And I think, well, there's a life thing I can teach them. And secondly, I actually mail them home to their parents, and their parents grade that for me this one time. I give them a rubric and I let them grade it. Because in high school, parents never get to see what kids do, because kids don't share, and parents don't visit. And so this does a whole bunch of things for me, and it's an authentic piece of writing. It ends up being a 5-paragraph essay. They just don't know it's a 5-paragraph essay. And I win on a lot of fronts with that. So authentic is great if we can make it authentic. And then here's the big thing, and I'm going to spend a little time on this at the end, because this saves me to guide them through the writing process. I have my students that want to do well, whether they're a top student or not, they want a grade. They will ask me to proofread their assignment. Now, the only thing worse than grading 100 really bad assignments is proofreading 100 really bad assignments and then having to grade them, and now it becomes 200 assignments, and I don't want to do that. So I didn't invent all these ways, but I've put together some things that work really well for me, that saves me time and puts more of the responsibility on the kids. And it doesn't matter what age process. I hear we're 6 through 12. It doesn't matter. These things all work with all those grade levels on any writing that you do. So we're going to hit all that, but we're going to go through the lesson a little faster than we do some other lessons, because we're not in a room together. We're not going to be able to put it do it with a lot of diligence, but I'm really focusing on the writing process anyway. So that's really going to work for us. So that's where I'm sitting. If in fact you are on as a student, great. If not, you're going to follow along with me. Either way, we're going to go live, and I'm going to take you into World Connections. So if you don't have a World Connections account, the way to be able to see that is to be my student. If you do, then you can hop on yours and see the same exact thing. So opens to my dashboard, but I'm going to very quickly go to the lesson that I was asked to show you, present in quotes on that, which is lesson 17. It's called The Consequences of Industrialization, a riveting topic for most students. That industrial revolution, that really sets their feet tingling when they get this. And so I'm not going to take the time to go through the entirety of the lesson here with you. And if you have questions on that later on, great. I have covered that a number of times. The majority of you have probably been teaching TCI a little bit and have stumbled across those things, but I'll certainly answer it later if you would like me to. But I'm going to jump into the activity slideshow. If you're a student following along, you can jump into the reading and you can see what that would look like from the student point of view. But if you want to see the activity slideshow, I can assign it to you right here. Although the whole entire thing to anybody that is signed up from class, it'll open immediately. I got to put some ending date, doesn't matter, arbitrary. And now you can actually see the exact same slide presentation that I'm about to show if you would like. So I'm going to jump in. All the pieces to a TCI lesson are there. So if you are new, a quick review. Every lesson has a preview that is short and accesses prior knowledge, segues into the activity. It has the activity, which takes the bulk of the time in a TCI classroom. And we always cover vocabulary, which I'll skip today. We always have a processing assignment that takes what's learned and does something with it to hopefully cement that into the students' brains. And then something that's new and growing for us is this virtual activity, which I'll show you at the end, works really well with if you had to do a lesson like I'm doing it here, but you wanted to do the whole lesson, this would allow you to do it. Also helps with if I remember correctly, you guys don't have an absence problem in your schools. It's just the rest of the country that has absence problems. I have absence problems. I can give this to the kids and they can still do the lesson without me having to recreate a time for them to do the lesson in the classroom. So that's growing. I don't know that we'll have one of those for every lesson, but we're going to have it for as many lessons as we can manufacture it. So I'll make sure I show you that. So just some of this, a lot of this portion of it is kind of show and tell. Stop me if you need a question about the lesson specifically. But we're dealing again with the Industrial Revolution, basically preview, short. They don't need any teaching to do the preview. So they're looking at this particular visual set of visuals right here, which is a great contrast. I really like this singular visual, which has 6 visuals built into it. So they're going to take a peek at this and then answer questions that build for us. So what are interesting details you see? How are the pictures on the left different from those on the right? And why do you think they created this art? They can, if I'm letting them follow along here, they can type in here their answers. It saves automatically. I think down here you can see it's got the timestamp for it. And they don't have to do this any other way. They don't have to do it in written form, but you can, however you want to do this. So this is setting the stage for us to get into something a little bit more depth that's going to be dealing with some artwork as we get going, okay? If I wanted to see it from the reading perspective and the other way that it looks, this has the text built in. So does the other version that I'm showing you. But here are the same key points and questions from the interactive student notebook. So really doesn't matter. And you can do the print version. So there's really 3 different ways you can go about doing this if you want to. But you can see there's that detailed answer I put in down here that's already saved for them that I just did today. Okay. But I'm going to keep running with this one. So you can see that previews really quick. This is a partnered activity. We would call it a skill builder if it didn't have a writing piece at the end of it, which are always paired activities. I would have them paired up already, even though the directions don't call for that, because this sort of becomes their little paired icebreaker for me while they're looking at this little bit of art. So really flexible. You can do that any way you want to. The answer to what this is, it's a lithograph for the 60th anniversary of Queen Victoria. And now we see that I call this a segue slide. We're going to learn about many causes and effects of the Industrial Revolution. So um, there are other lessons in this unit dealing with the Industrial Revolution. This is the focus point for this particular one. Every question has, or excuse me, every lesson has an essential question that it focuses on. What impacts did the IR have on society, and dual focus, the environment, which is going to allow kids to branch off in different directions. And the text is embedded here. So if I wanted students to go to the text, they can. They can still use all of the icons here to read it aloud, to take notes, and to select the reading level. And I'm going to show you this now because I'm going to use it later, but I make really a lot of use of this main idea piece here. Colleges are telling us that kids don't know what a main idea is when they go to college, which blows my mind because every one of you sitting in this Zoom would say that you have at one point or another touched on what a main idea is. And colleges are telling us kids are clueless when they get there. And so when I do that, when I turn it on, it brings it up in blue. 70% of all testable information is embedded into main ideas on most textbooks and reading material you're going to give to kids. And so when I have to get kids through something quickly, I will have them turn this on and tell them to read the blue. They will look at the answers down below, which don't exist here. They do on the reading one, and when I come back here, you saw where they were earlier. They see what they're looking for. They read the blue, they get the answer. Because for us at TCI, it's not about can they find the answer in the text. It's what can they do with the information when they get it. So we're trying to find quick and easy ways to get the information in the hands of the students so they can then do something with it. You can take a lot of classroom time and eat it all up having kids read today, especially post-COVID. That's been my biggest frustration. So little audio slideshow I'm not going to play with here. It's about 3 minutes long. It goes over some of the Industrial Revolution, why it started in Great Britain. I don't think I need to do that with us, but it is fascinating for kids to be able to get a little information, because I think most kids, when they go through this, if we don't tell them that, think it started in America, which it did not. So we're back here. We've got a section. This is the part where I will take them and read the blue, because I have to get them some information to be able to get them to analyze the art that I'm going to want them to analyze. The way TCI provides for this is 3 quick sections. Section 1, oops, get that out of my way. Section 2 and Section 3. If they read the blue and they're with a partner, this is 10 minutes top. They gather the information they need, and now they're going to be able to use it. I have made mini lectures for me, mini MINI, and take 10 minutes to give them what they need. I'm not even opposed to giving them a sheet with information, because again, for me at least, it's not about getting it, it's about what you can do with it. So they've got some information on the labor movement. They've got some information on the working class in the student text. And so then they're ready to attack what we're going to do with the activity for the writing for understanding. So very quickly, they are taking on a role of being an art critic for a New York newspaper in 1880. And so their goal is to write an article at the end. So there's their writing assignment that's going to critique art from one perspective or another. And so they're going to write from a pro-industrialist idea set or an anti-industrialist idea set. And they don't know who they are yet. I will assign it. It's really irrelevant to me which one I assign it to. But you can see we've broken it up into colors there. And so I've broken them up in pairs, however you want to do that. And the kids on, let's see what they make. I guess this is the pro-industrialist, the green one, will get one handout and the red will get another. Well, here's what I click on them and they'll open up. I already opened them, so it's faster. The A group are going to believe the Industrial Revolution had positive effects. There's some information here. And then down below is the sheet where they are going to gather their data to be able to write. Now, I can print this. I can put it in their notebook. I can put it on Google Drive and they can access it there. or they can access it digitally as they go along. Any different way, but you notice we've got 3 points for each piece of art, and they don't have to do all, what is there, 10? Nowhere in TCI pedagogy will you see that they have to do every single slide, every single visual, every single everything. They're trying to look at art from this time period, analyze it from a certain perspective, and get some info on it. So there's no magic number, but they don't have to do all 10. And that's important because time's a 4-letter word. So here are the points that we are looking at here about positive things about the Industrial Revolution. We're giving them some. By the same token, here's the negative view that half the class will be. They'll have the same note taking down here, and we're giving them some points that show a negative effect of the Industrial Revolution. So they're getting some of this, and now they're going to try and find these things in the art that they're going to examine and look at. And so in a typical TCI assignment, these things will be up around the room, and so they will get up, they will move around the room, and they will scrutinize it together, getting their notes for it, and trying to come up with 3 points that shows that it's positive, 3 points that shows that it's negative. All of the art that we have will be able to get both a positive and a negative out of it. Some of them will lean more toward the negative, some of them will lean more toward the positive, but all of them can get both perspectives. So this is a practice one we're not going to do. Is the one they've already looked at. So this is the practice. We're not going to take our time for that. Here's some pro and anti thoughts on that. I don't want to mess with it. Here's the room setup. Placards, maybe 2 copies of each of them set up around the room. If I'm doing it digitally, I'll show you how I'm going to do that. But this is right now what it would look like if I was doing this live. We even give you a song, Pomp and Circumstance, March number 2, that's 5 minutes and something long to play while you do this. You can do whatever you want to do, but we give that. I will not play this for you while I'm talking with this. So here's the exhibition in an art gallery. They're going to go around and look at the art. Perhaps you want them to hit 5 of them. If they take 3 minutes a pop, you're in the 15 to 20 minute range for them to go and do this. If you have the time and you'd like them to look at a little bit more art, that would be great. But they're going to get what they need to get if they look at half of these, for sure. Then they're going to return to their side of the classroom, and we're going to critique the art. Now, how much time you have is the biggest deal always. Typically for me, I want to do a TCI lesson in 2. I have, what are our classes? 52 minutes, two periods. If it's something that I really want to emphasize, then I can go 3 with that. And there are certain topics that I really want to emphasize. For me, this is not one of them. So I would attempt to do this in 2 days, 1 if I'm a block teacher. So if I want them to see all the art, I can do this part. Show a piece of art, review the images, let a pro group give their points, let an anti-group give their points, and let all the students fill out their chart. So this will run through every placard and look at pro and con. I'm not going to do that with you. There we go. And then a little wrap up. There's some tenements there that we're looking at, and we want kids to get an overall view of pros and cons. And I think that's really important in history because, man, I don't know about any of you on here. I'm going to guess out of all these people, some of you are going to feel my pain on this one. But the hardest thing for me to do as a history teacher is teach kids context of the times. It is very hard for me to get them to think like those people thought because they want to judge from a 2024 perspective. And that's that doesn't do justice to history when we do that, but it's really hard to teach them that. And so lessons like this can help with that, where they look at this and they see how horrible it is. This could be for a lot of these people an upgrade from where they came from in the first place. So perspective's a big deal, hard to teach. But I give that my best effort. Okay. So I'm going to skip the processing for a second and go to this virtual piece here to show you what we're trying to do to help with absences and online teaching. So if I was just going to teach this class online, these are the same two handouts that I had before. I would go and do the same preview with the kids that I did before using this actual slide. And then I can, if it's a group of kids, I can put them in breakout rooms by pairs if I want to for this. If it's an absent kid, I can just let the kid do the lesson here, and they're going to call up the same visual that I had around the room with the same little explanation of what's going on in the visual, and they can now do the lesson. Is it as good as interacting with another person live and having the whole class? No. But I don't know that we can replace that. If we could replace that, then we don't need buildings for schools anymore. And I don't think we're at that spot yet. So we can tell them do 5, they can pick the 5, I can tell them which 5 to do, I can do this however I want to, but it's another option for you to be able to do as a teacher. And so these are starting to pop up various places. And I don't think there's any rhyme or reason. I think we find one with the team that's doing this, they find when they can do and they do it, and we throw it out there to you guys. No fanfare, so you may not know it. You might have to look for them a little bit, but this lesson has one. So I am going to back up to this processing because here comes the writing. Here comes the whole shebang here. Now you can change the writing anytime. I often do. It depends a lot to me on what I'm working on writing with my students. So this one is a 1 to 2 page newspaper article. There's that authentic writing. You are an art critic, basically a journalist. This is how you're going to write this out. And from the viewpoint you were assigned, I can change that. And I could tell them if I've gone through that whole sort of wrap up there, I can let them write it from either viewpoint. It doesn't matter, but they only get to write it from one viewpoint. It's very difficult to write a paper from 2 different viewpoints. So I'm not going to let them do that. It's a trap and they will drown themselves. So there is a whole bunch of directions here. I can change it. I can add to it whatever I want, but I want to put out what it is I want them to produce for me for writing. The directions on this I'm not as concerned with as long as you understand that they're going to have an opinion. I've given them their opinion, pro or anti, or I allowed them to choose it. And now they're going to have to refer to at least 3 pieces of art. And so if I'm going to make this kind of a 5-paragraph essay, they need 3 body paragraphs. There you go. There's your body paragraphs. And then look at these categories. So now they're going to have to cover all 3 of those categories from the 3 sections of the text that they looked at. And then the impossible task, no spelling or grammatical errors. We'll see how that goes. So I have 3 things to show you that I use to help me with the process of writing, because as I work on writing nationally with people, the thing I notice is it's the teaching is not necessarily the stumbling block. The assigning of the writing piece is not the stumbling block. It's the writing process that's the stumbling block, and that's largely due to time and the varied level of writing that the students possess by the time we get here. So I'm going to show you 3 things that help me with the writing process in no particular order. And you may have heard of 1, 2, or all 3 of these, or none of them. And that's really okay. And for me, this is the bang for the buck on the time that you're putting in here with me today. So in no particular order, if you've not heard of the 6 trait writing rubric, it looks daunting there, but the thing about it that's wonderful, you'll notice there's 6 levels of writing, and I like having a number of levels because I find if I have 3, I get kids that are kind of in between a little bit. I don't have that problem with 6, but here's the part that I love are these 6 things on the side, and you don't have to pick the same ones that are here. So this has main theme and supporting details, and then it has organization here, voice, word choice, sentence fluency, and conventions. I don't care the how many you have, I will tell you that 6 is important and order is important. So if I were using this from the very beginning of the school year, the first one I'm going to grade them on is the first one I have here in the corner. And for me, I would choose and name this thesis, because that's one of the language I'm using with kids. And then I would have my little bullet points of the language that I use to describe a positive thesis. They are going to write the entirety of whatever it is I'm having them writing. The only thing I'm grading is this right here. I am not yet grading punctuation and grammar if I have that down there at number 6. So I'm just grading this. And I'm just going to grade this until the majority of my kids are 4 and up. If that happens on the first writing assignment, fabulous. We can move on to, in this instance, organization techniques for them. I've never had it where I only did one writing assignment and got past the first stage here. But I want to build with them. My goal is that by the time they get to, and I can pick any time, for me, it's the end of the year. If I get to the end of the year and I'm down here and my kids are all 4 or better on all 6 of these, I have been massively successful according to my evil writing plan. And this helps me grade faster, because if everybody is proficient here, when I go to the next one, I really only have to grade it for organization, because I already know they've mastered this to a proficient level. So I am grading much more quickly every time I grade a significant writing assignment. Because whether we know we're doing this or not, when we assign large writing assignments and kids are horrible at them, then we are either going to alter the way we grade or alter the assignments we give, and we're going to give them much more simple writing assignments. We're not going to challenge them because it's killing us to even grade them, and we're not sure we see the point. So this allows me to go through quickly, still give some valuable feedback, because if I make a good rubric and I give a kid a 2, then that kid just sees right here why the kid got a 2. I don't have to spend time writing 2 sentences worth of comments for the students. And if I set up my culture, the kids know that if they don't understand why they got that one, that they're going to set up a time to meet with me. That, for me, that saves me time, because most of the time kids will understand that. So that's 6 trait writing rubric. And that works for all levels of kids at all grade levels. And there are a million examples of these online if you want to get one, and you may love it and not even have to create your own. I took a very generic one here to give to you. And you may love it, but want to change the order of those things. Great. Voice is a relatively higher skill level. So if it were me, I'd probably move voice down a little lower there, but that's fine. Okay. So 6 trait writing group. Here's your second one. I happen to get really blessed and teach with the woman that invented the 3.8 paragraph when I was in my first couple of years of teaching. She was an English teacher at my school in very rural, southern, eastern California. And she came up with this thing, and it has helped me forever. It is really a way to teach how to write a paragraph that can be used forever, or kids can outgrow it. But it's wonderful for that growing population of kids that really don't know how to write, don't know where to start, no clue. So it's called a 3.8 paragraph. I mean, I have here. Let me pull this over. I have this guy. I think this will be something that helps. I can start this guy from the current slide. So it is you put it over. There it is. Oh, good. So it is a piece of writing that consists, it can be multiple paragraphs. It can be just a simple paragraph. If I wrote a 5-paragraph essay, I could do this 5 times if I wanted to. It's clear, it's concise, and I guess the word that I would put in here that's wonderful about it is structured. And that's what a lot of kids who are poor writers need, is structure. Its name comes from 3 main points, 8 total sentences for the paragraph. So it's easy to count, and I could do this in conjunction with a 6-trait writing rubric. And so my first thing on the writing rubric might be, in this case, structure. Does it have 3 main points that I'm going to then expound upon later on if I want to? Does it have 8 complete sentences? It should not have fewer than 8 or more than 8 in this structure. Obviously, they can outgrow this. There's nothing that says that a paragraph has to be 8 sentences. But for that kid that is struggling, for that kid that just has no clue where to start, this is a wonderful way to do that. And so here's what it looks like. And really, if you again, I just Googled this one and grabbed it. Every time I do this, I grab a different one. So sentence 1, topic sentence that identifies what the paragraph's going to discuss. Essentially, that's the beginning of thesis. It all ties together with my evil plan of trying to get kids to be able to write a thesis paragraph. So sentence 2 identifies main point number 1. Sentence 3 adds detail about number 1. Sentence 4 identifies main point 2, explain it. Main point 3, explain it, restate it in the 8th sentence. If for younger kids, what works really well is if they hand write it out, you have them make the period really big. And so it's super easy to go through and count, boom, 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 8 sentences. And then later, once they get that, then I can break down and grade the next trait and the next trait and the next trait. So you can, again, Google that. If you want this link, I'll give it to you. I actually have my email, but I'll give it to you again if you want it. But I just Googled it and picked one. Anderson, Kentucky Schools is where that one came from. So for whatever that's worth. So here is the third and final one. So I want kids to become better writers. And one way they become better writers is they critique writing. And so they have to sort of get over themselves eventually in my class. I understand kids are shy, I understand kids don't want to share stuff. I will build slowly, but I'm going to get them to a place where people are going to see their work. It's going to happen sooner or later in their life. I teach high school. I want to get them there. And so this is to put them in groups of 4. And the first time I do this, I have them take a piece of writing that none of them wrote. But once they get to where I want them to be, they write a piece. It's a rough draft, which kids don't do anymore. So I actually make them do a quick rough draft of whatever we're writing about. And then they're going to get into 4 and they're going to pass their paper to the person on their left. Oftentimes I color code this, but it just depends on your strategy in the classroom. So I'm using geographic features on this one. So I want them to read this person's paper and simply circle the main idea. I could choose anything I want them to focus on. So I just arbitrarily chose main idea in this one because, as I said earlier, kids don't know what a main idea is. So I focus on that. So I give them approximately a minute to read through this and locate and circle the main idea. If they cannot find it, they will make a little note over there that just says, can't find main idea. It's okay. They're not putting their name on it. They're not writing a note, you're such a loser, you don't have a main idea. They're just simply trying to identify it. Then they pass it. Now I'm going to have them put a line under any word they think might be misspelled. And there's one of the most misspelled words in the English language, misspell. So they're going to underline it. Sometimes there's 5, 6, 7 of these in one paragraph. And I told them it's okay if it's misspelled right. If you think it's misspelled, do it. And then that kid will have to look up at the end. And that's okay because we're trying to get better. Then I have them put a star next to the 3 main supporting details. So if I'm having them write a 3-paragraph essay, that should be in certain sentences in the 3.8. It should be in sentence 3, 5, and 7. And so kids can look for that and see if they can find details that supports the idea above it. I could put anything in these I want to. They hand it back to the original owner, and then I give the original owner a couple of minutes to go through and look at it, validate it, and fix it. Once I've taught kids how to do this, it doesn't take me 10 minutes. Every kid now got their essay or whatever it is read through 3 times. They have feedback from 3 different people. Everybody that read it now got to read 3 pieces of writing they normally would not have been able to read because kids don't share, like, hey, can you critique this while you're eating your pizza? No. So, and it saves me a ton of time. And then I just tell kids, hey, if after everybody's gone through this and you've looked at it, if you don't understand it, schedule an appointment with me and I'll help you. What I find is when kids know somebody's going to read this that's not me, they pay more attention to things. They might actually look up a word and learn how to spell it before they write it in there. That's a positive thing. They will pay more attention to the structure of the writing. So to be quite honest, I shared with you 3 things. I do all 3 of these simultaneously. So I will do this in the class. I will have the kids writing, if I'm using this for this class, a 3.8 paragraph. Then I will have them go through here and critique. And again, if it takes 10 minutes, I can start a class like this. They critique it, and now I move on to my regular lesson. And then I'm going to grade it using a 6-trait writing rubric and give them their feedback back that way. So this has changed my perspective on writing. It's not like I'm eager to grade their writing anymore, but I no longer fear it. And because it's fast, if I can actually use that writing rubric and grade a kid's writing in a minute to a minute and a half, I can actually go through a couple of those in a decent period of time for me to be able to make that happen. And if I'm really good, I can teach kids how to do that 6-trait writing rubric. And there are certain categories where the students can do that for me. And that helps me too. And I wouldn't dump it on them and just go, oh, they're doing my job. But they get better by reading better writing. And strangely, they get better by reading worse writing. If I don't know, those are the right terms to, they're probably not politically correct, but writing that's not as good as their own. And that's what I want them to do, is become better writers using history. And that's the ticket. So there's those things. So recap, we're using writing to learn. So in this case, they're learning about the Industrial Revolution. They're also learning how to be better writers, but rich experience. So looking at the art from a biased point of view, recording their ideas on that one sheet that I had them do, whether digitally or in writing, an authentic writing assignment, a newspaper article, and there's that writing process using the 3 ideas I gave you, or anything that you have that you're already comfortable with. But the writing process has been forgotten in education because of that 4-letter word time, and I get it. So I'm trying to do a really important piece and save my sanity at the same time.